One of the biggest challenges I see people have when they're trying to grow and scale their expertise while not maxing out their time and attention is that they have a hard time going from services and one-on-one and just coming up with whatever it is that customer needs, to how do you deliver a packaged solution that allows you to exponentially grow without maxing out your time, right? So you can only take on so many one-on-one clients, or you can only show up live so much, right? You're constrained by your time. So how do we leapfrog that? So that's the question that most experts are coming to me for in terms of, okay, so I built a business, it requires a lot of energy and effort from me. How do I start to shift that and still provide a great experience for my customers? So that's the question that we grapple with as we're building the business. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about in all of July is the theme of the three different engines that you need to make all of this work so you can create a scalable business model and become a scalable expert. And so each week, we're going to dive into each one of these systems that if you build it, then what happens is you start to shift the way that you're showing up. You start to shift the way that your customers are getting results and how you're delivering, right? Our goal is to move into scalable delivery so that if you add 10, 100, 1,000 customers tomorrow, you could help all of them at a super high level and they're all still getting results. For many of you, when I say that, I get like a visual reaction of, oh my gosh, no way. Like, how would I add 1,000 customers tomorrow? What we do is systematically build your business so you can do that, right? Because you probably can't actually add 1,000 customers tomorrow without losing your mind. And so what we wanna do is we wanna apply all 3 of these systems so that you can do that in your business. So your business starts to grow exponentially regardless of how much time you're spending in the room. So this month, that's what we're gonna start diving into is how do we do that? What does that look like? And then I'm gonna share with you some ways that I help my clients actually fast track that whole process. So the first system that we're gonna tackle this month is creating your expert authority system. One of the biggest things that will change the game for you is when you can get all of your expertise out of your head and focus it into something that you can deliver on repeat. So, most of the time, you may have some type of framework or system about doing things with your customers. Some of you may not. Some of you may just get a customer and say, yep, I can help you, or you have a menu of services, or you submit a proposal, or you do different things for every single one of your customers. And one of the key things that you'll start learning as you continue forward, listening hopefully to the podcast, and as we go through July, learning how some of these systems can shift how you're thinking about your business is that for most of you, that may be working for you, but you're starting to see how that's not necessarily sustainable. And quite honestly, one of the things I ran into a lot when I used to do that customer proposals, kind of custom work for every single client that I had, is that you really wanted to do your best work and you really wanted to apply your expertise, but you didn't have time, right? Because you were so busy doing all these different things that you didn't have time to actually do the the best work that you could do with your customers because your focus was so scattered, right? So we're gonna talk about how to really look at focusing a little bit more by having sort of one approach that you use with all of your customers. And so when we go through this work in the infinite scale methodology curriculum that I have, you really lockstep like each piece of this so you don't feel overwhelmed and you can actually make the change. So often it's like, just do this and put together this big thing. And then what do you do with it? Right. Or that's great, but then I have all these clients. How do I do that? Right. What does that look like? So that's one of the things that we really focus on inside of the Scalable Expert Society, or for sure the mentorship if you're working more closely with me. But to get started here in the podcast, like one of the things to think about is like, how do you stop being the unicorn for every single one of your clients and lead with your expertise, lead with your packaged methodology that you're getting out of your head and putting into something that you can repeat for every single customer. Because imagine if your goal was to take your customer from point A to point B, and every single customer who came in wanted to go on that same journey with you, then you're just taking them on the same journey. And what happens when you're taking all your customers on the same journey is that you see patterns and you can actually create things to help them go through that journey. If you have new clients who are coming in and every client wants a different journey, then what you're doing is you're just recreating different journeys every single time and you can't ever get leverage, you can't ever get traction because you're just recreating the wheel every single time you have a new customer who comes in. And so just really sit with that and think about that because what happens once you have a consistent way that you're helping all of your customers on the same journey, and it frees you up to be able to create more kind of cool stuff for your customers because they're on the same journey, right? So you could create things to support them on that journey, and that takes on a life of its own, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So just to think about the power of that and how you can start even just shifting slightly to get all of your customers on a similar journey. Because one of the biggest things it's going to take for you is a commitment that you are okay with taking all your customers on the same journey. I see you as an expert and a problem solver. Like we like to change it up, right? We like to take on new projects because they're fun and exciting and challenging. But that is not going to help you exponentially grow your company. And so it's really making that commitment for yourself. This is what's going to happen. So take that, think about that. That's most of the expert authority system. The other part of it is how do you become an authority out in the market? How do you start to attract people to you for the thing that you're known for your intellectual property, for your system that you have that helps people go from point B. So as you start doing this, it also gives you way more credibility in the market because you're now seen as an authority. And so that rounds out that expert authority system. Once you have that, then the next system is the system that we'll talk about next, but it's really how do you start delivering that journey consistently? What does that look like? How do you start taking some proactive steps to extract yourself from the actual journey that your customers are walking? And so that we'll talk about in another session. But when you start looking at your business model, one of the biggest things to sort of step into is that as an expert, you have a different business model than someone else who wants to build an agency or a traditional large company. For years, I took advice from business owners who were trying to grow very large firms and ultimately end up not staying in the business. And that was helpful. But for some reason, I was like, this isn't working for me. This isn't what I want to be doing. And as an expert, it wasn't that I didn't want to be helping my customers. I didn't want to be making an impact and increasing my expertise and my authority in my market. Um, and and yes, I wanted to hire a team. I had a big team, but it wasn't translating into the same business model that allowed me to leverage my expertise in a way that helped more and more customers, that 1,000 customers, without it maxing out my time and attention. So instead of going, um, wide and out, as a business model, it's really looking at how do you structure your expertise in a different way to package your assets that help you make an impact without maxing out your time. So it's not about becoming the boss. It's not about becoming a leader or a founder or someone on the board of directors. Like it's not about exiting. It's about growing your impact without losing your expertise. And that is a shift that as a scalable expert, you're trying to maintain that because once you have that, then you have choice, right? Then you can decide how you want to grow different aspects of the business. You can decide how to grow your next business or whatever it is that you want to do as you're exponentially growing your business. But you got to get out of the time and attention um, sort of trap in order to start growing in a way that expands your expertise outward. I wanted to tee up this conversation around what are the systems that you need to have in place when you start building your scalable expert business model versus really trying to step into a business model that was never actually meant for you in the first place. Because our goal is to help more customers make a bigger impact and at the same time be able to have choice in how we spend our time and how we spend our attention. I hope you are going to enjoy this series in July where we really start to hone in and focus on what is going to shift for you, what is going to move the needle so you can step into this new sort of evolution of the online education business or online business and start to thrive. So until next time, enjoy.